If you're wired for hypervigilance like me, which means every single noise goes through you and you're constantly on edge, then this video is for you. Because this has been my reality for years. And recently I've realised that I cannot keep running to try and find peace in my life. In this video, I'm going to be talking about how to change the things that are within your control so that you are no longer a victim of your external circumstances. I've been hypervigilant all my life. Since about the age of 4, I remember being sensitive to everything that was going on around me. Other people's emotions, what they used to say, noise in general, and I always felt a little bit delicate. And it wasn't until I finally moved into my own place in my mid-30s and I left the family home that I finally thought I can have some peace and quiet in my life. I can have the TV off. I don't have to have people round. I can just shut off and focus on my own healing and doing meditations and going back to my personal development and reading books that inspired me, and I could just shut off from the world. Now, the flat I moved into happened to be opposite a motorbike shop and a petrol station with a car wash next to it. So pretty much all day long I would hear motorbikes pulling up, revving up. They would even meet there on a Sunday morning and they would all rev their engines ready to go on a long bike ride. And all through the day it would be constant beep, 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 beep of people filling their cars up with petrol and driving in and out of the car wash and hearing the big washer and the big dryer going off all day. And I remember being so stressed at times, I would literally just look up and be like, what have I done to deserve this? And I would get so bad sometimes, I would shout, give me a break. And I'm sure the neighbours must have heard me and thought, who is this crazy woman that's moved in next door? And at times it really got me down. And I remember 2 distinct points in that flat where I thought, do you know what? I just don't want to do this anymore, because if I can't find peace when I'm finally living on my own and I have the freedom to do what I want, but if I'm getting this wound up and this stressed and I'm pretty much in fight or flight 24/7, then what hope is there of me actually creating a life that I love? Now, I actually ended up moving back in with my mum because after 14 months of them living in Spain, my dad passed away really unexpectedly in the middle of the night. And me being a people pleaser, I gave up the flat and I gave up my job. I went out to Spain and rescued my mum, and I said, look, let's just live together temporarily until you get back on your feet. So I sort of put my needs to one side. Now, in this flat that we lived together in, to start out, it was fine. We didn't get on great with the neighbours, but we couldn't hear them. And to be honest, it was very quiet. I almost felt a little bit shut off from everything there. Now, me and my mum, we are very different people. And I would spend a lot of time in my bedroom because quite often just being around her energy would make me feel quite tense. So this worked for a bit, and I was going to the gym. I was doing my meditations, I was doing my breath work, I was reading my personal development books, and I was getting back on a path of looking after myself and nourishing myself and building myself up, building my self-worth up again after years of doing everything for everybody else. I was finally focusing on me. Now, after a little while, someone moved in on the other side of us, and I started hearing these really weird noises. And initially, I didn't put 2 and 2 together. It actually sounded like there was a pigeon in the roof. And I thought maybe, oh, they're nesting and I don't want to be out of order, but also you are making a racket. So I used to go and get the mop and bang the ceiling and the noise would stop for a little while. But after a time, I realised, hang on a second, this noise doesn't sound like it's coming from above me. It doesn't sound like it's coming from the ceiling. So the next time I heard it, I put my ear to the wall and I realised that it was actually coming from our new neighbour. Now, to cut a long story short, my mum ended up going round there when this noise started up one morning. It was about 7 o'clock in the morning. I was really stressed. I had anxiety at the time. And my mum, bless her, she would do anything for me. And I didn't have the guts to go around there because I can't bear the sort of, conflict. That's part of being a people pleaser. We do not like potential conflict. So we won't speak up for, what we need. But my mum, she went round there and he came to the door and I heard them over the fence, and it was basically him using his exercise machine, and he had some kind of breathing issue that every time he used this machine, he would make this noise. Now, I am not someone to judge. Whatever was going on was none of my business. All I knew was it was very loud. So he agreed that he would actually move his machines to the back side of the house, because they were literally just on the other side of the wall of my bedroom. And hopefully, it would be a little bit quieter. And for the rest of the time that we lived there, it was absolutely fine. I could still hear the noise, but it was much further away and it didn't bother me. And the fact that we had actually made friends with this guy, he was genuinely making an effort, and that was no longer an issue. However, after 3 years of living with my mum, when actually it was only meant to be temporary, we decided it was time to go our separate ways, and we looked for separate flats so that she could do her thing and have her routine and I could do mine. And to be honest, I was really looking forward to not having the telly on every time I came home from work and walked into the lounge, because it was right in my ear and it would set off my nervous system again. So we actually found 2 flats in the same building, and this is where I am now. And I absolutely love this flat. But when I was making the decision to move here, one of the main things I had to consider was, is there going to be noise? This flat is right next to a railway station, and there's a level crossing about 100 metres down that way. And every now and then you hear the da-da-da-da-da-da when the alarm goes off and the barriers come down. And I thought, is that going to be an issue? Because yeah, it's great that me and mum have found a place in the same building, but if I can't relax in my own flat, then what's the point? And I started going into this anxiety and overthinking pattern that I do when I'm weighing up all the consequences, all the possibilities and the worst case scenario, and thinking how I would deal with each thing if it happened. And when I was in this really wound up state, I met my auntie for a coffee. And she noticed straight away that something wasn't right with me. And she said, Kathy, I've never seen you like this before. And I explained the whole thing. I explained being in the same building with mum and that I found a flat that I love, but it's right next to a train station. And she spoke absolute sense to me in that, Kathy, just make a decision. And if it is the wrong decision, then you can always change your mind and move again. And I thought, do you know what? She's right. Let's just move there. Let's see how it goes. And if it's wrong, then I can move again and I'll deal with it at the time. I have overcome a lot. And if I need to move one more time, then I will sort out whatever I need to make that happen. So I finally moved into this flat. And for the first 2 weeks, it was bliss. I didn't hear the trains. I could hear them in the distance, but it wasn't disturbing. And I thought, great, I can finally relax and get back to me and not have any intrusions or disturbances. And then about 2 weeks in, I suddenly heard this boom, 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 boom across the ceiling. And I thought, what's that? And then like these random knocks and bangs. And I thought, oh, maybe someone's moving in or moving out. And I didn't think anything more of it. And then a few days later, I heard boom, 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 boom across the ceiling. And I thought, what is that? It sounds like someone running. Now, on another day, I had heard a kid in one of the flats above, and he was like throwing his toys off the balcony. So I thought, oh, it's a young couple. It's the kid running around. I can't get annoyed. He sounds like he's got a lot of energy. I know what I was like as a kid, so I'm not going to judge. But over the course of time, it got more frequent, and I was like, why is this kid running around all day long? Like, why aren't the parents doing anything? And I don't mean that in like a judgmental way, but I just thought, was someone running around that much? Like, what's going on? So anyway, I must have waited about 3 or 4 months before I said anything. And I actually messaged my landlord and I said, look, there's all this banging on the ceiling. Now, don't get me wrong, we live in apartments, we're going to hear some noise from the other flats, but this seems a little bit excessive. And actually, I can feel my anxiety coming back again. And it's been a bit of an issue for me in the past. I've actually moved due to noise in the past. What would you suggest that I do? Should I speak to them? Do you know who's in the flat? And she said, well, actually, my husband's going to the annual general meeting for this building, like next week. So I'll find out who lives there and I will speak to the landlord or the agent if necessary. So the next week, she messaged me back. And she said, Kathy, there isn't a kid in the flat above you. It's actually a woman in a wheelchair. And she's been in a wheelchair for a few months now. But given that there are wooden floors, I'm not really sure what we can do. So anyway, I said, oh, of course, obviously, I don't want to cause any issues. No worries at all. And I just said to my landlord, don't worry about it. And I'll just see how it goes. If it's an issue, then I'll go up and I'll speak to them. And then it occurred to me that this lady is in a wheelchair on the second floor and there is no lift in this building. So how does that work? And then I thought, do you know what? Maybe it is the wheels of her wheelchair that I can hear. And who am I to go up and speak to this woman when blatantly that is out of her control? And when I contemplated this, I had a complete perspective shift because I thought, do you know what? Everyone has got their own difficulties. And I don't mean this through pity or feeling sorry for the woman, but who am I to go up there and say, can you keep the noise down because of my anxiety? When actually she may have enough difficulties of her own. So I thought, do you know what? I'm not going to say anything. Now, even though I had compassion for this woman's situation, it didn't change the fact that when I would hear the thudding of the wheels and all these drops and bangs and even the washing machine, it would literally send me into turmoil. Like my anxiety was so bad, not just because of the noise, but because it was bringing up that old trigger of I am never going to find peace and all these things are getting the better of me. So I thought, right, I am not going to let this continue to be the case because yeah, I can move again, but then what else is it going to be? I love everything about this flat. And if I move, yeah, it might be quiet, but maybe there'll be an issue with the electric or an issue with the water, or it'll be next to a building site, or there'll be a shop outside, or I'll hear people going past. There is always going to be something, and I cannot keep running because I refuse to be a victim of my environment for the rest of my life. So I thought, right, what can I change that is within my control? How can I take my power back in this situation? I can't change the fact that she lives above me. I can't change the fact that there's no soundproofing. And I can't change the fact that my nervous system is wired for hypervigilance. So what can I change? And what I did was worked out when the noise was at its worst, which was in the mornings and in the evenings. And at these times, I would play music, or I would put my headphones on, or I would do a calming technique like meditation or breath work. And that was when I was indoors and I was really feeling, the anxiety flare up. But what I also realised is that this was an opportunity for me to actually get out the flat more and meet new people and build that connection with people again. Because part of what I had done in my healing was to cut off a lot of people that weren't good for me, didn't have my best interests at heart. But I did this to the point that I actually ended up isolating myself. And I would find that I didn't want to go out and see people and I'd want to hibernate in my flat. But that's why I think the noise triggered me even more, was because I felt I didn't have anywhere to go to actually get away and do my own thing and do what I enjoy, it was almost like I was hiding indoors. So this was the perfect opportunity to get me out and build that social circle, build that routine, go to the gym, work on my fitness, and just work on everything as a whole, rather than focusing on why this noise was affecting me so much. What I realized was that it wasn't about eliminating this discomfort. It was about learning to regulate my nervous system so that the noises I heard weren't interpreted as danger. And the reason I'm wired like that in the first place is because I grew up in an unstable environment. My parents were emotionally unavailable, and as a very young kid, I remember from about the age of 3 or 4, I could always sense this tension in our house. And I felt at that age it was my duty to do whatever I could to keep the peace. Whether that meant helping around at home, bringing home good school reports, making them laugh, helping out with my sister who was on the autistic spectrum and I could sense my parents had difficulties with her needs. Whatever I could do to keep things running smoothly and to almost smooth over this tension that I could feel. That is the role that I took on, the good girl role. But the thing is, when you do this, you are training your nervous system to be braced all the time so that you are ready for the next potential danger. And as you grow up, that is the state that your nervous system goes into as default. Whenever there is a noise or a disturbance or an argument or conflict, you are braced so that you can get through that moment. And that is a survival mechanism, which, yes, it may have served you in childhood, but as you get older, you realise that you react to things that aren't actually a danger. So you know consciously with your mind that you are not at threat, but your nervous system doesn't know that. That pattern is wired into the nervous system. So even though you consciously know that nothing's going to happen and nothing is wrong, your body reacts differently. It goes into overthinking, it goes into anxiety, it goes into shallow breathing, and you go into this tense state where your body literally tenses up and you feel really reactive to stuff that goes on around you. Even the smallest knock or kids playing in the street or foxes making a noise outside, all that stuff you're really sensitive to. And that has been my reality for so long. But what I've realised is every time you focus on what is going on around you in your external environment, you are not focused on what is going on in here. And effectively, you are giving your power away to all these things which are outside of your control. And I've decided I'm not going to let that happen anymore. So rather than focus on my external environment, I'm going to focus on the internal environment. And what can I do to take back control? Because I can't change these things that are going on around me. So what can I change? And what I can change is nervous system regulation. Realizing that when these noises or disruptions or what feels like an intrusion, when that all happens, actually I'm not at threat. And I can teach my body to feel safe in that moment. And I can do it in the moment when I'm actually triggered. And I can also do it as a preventative measure, i.e. build a routine where I am going out and meeting people that are into the same things as me. And we have that connection. And they do have my best interests at heart. And they support me to be me and do the things that I enjoy, and likewise me them. So it's a good vibration and a good energy to be around. And getting out in nature more, going to the gym, looking after myself, eating well, just doing all the things which are good for the soul, and teach your nervous system that everything is okay despite what may be going on around you. So if you're also hypervigilant from your upbringing and the environment that you grew up in, and now you find yourself getting really frustrated at all these things that are going on around you, and you just think, oh, give me a break, you know, what have I done to deserve this? Become aware in that moment that actually you do not need to be a victim of what's going on externally. Yes, you're sensitive, but that doesn't mean that you're helpless. And you have a choice to learn how to change the things that are within your control so that you are not a victim to your external environment. Now, I'm sharing this because it is real and it is what I'm going through at the moment. Now, I don't pretend to be fixed. I don't pretend to be healed. I'm not a guru talking at you from the top of a mountain. But I am on this journey myself. And if I can share with you the things that have helped me to start to find peace in my life after a lifetime of being wired for survival and being in fight or flight, then I'm gonna do that. And I want you to know that if I can take steps to taking control back and not being a victim to my external environment, then you can too. So if you are hypervigilant and you are reacting to noises and things that are going on around you, I really hope that you found this video helpful. Drop me a comment below and let me know what resonated. And if you enjoyed it, hit like and subscribe. I'm sending you so much love and I'll see you in the next one.